Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. A lot of you guys requested more Age of Ultron videos and asked a whole bunch of questions, so I wanted to do a fun bonus video for a lot of the big things that got cut out of the movie. Joss Whedon actually said when he was getting ready to make Age of Ultron, his goal was to make it shorter than the first movie, and they were shorter by like a minute or two. I'll say spoiler warning if you guys haven't seen the movie, just because we'll be talking about really specific stuff. So starting with number 5, Thanos end credits scene. Whedon owned up to the fact that he is not a big fan of writing for Thanos, so he just tries to avoid him as much as possible. Whenever it came time for James Gunn to use him in Guardians of the Galaxy, Whedon said he chuckled a little bit and said, "Enjoy yourself, good luck," with just the slightest hint of sarcasm. You know, of course he's a big fan of James Gunn and a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. It turned out great. But one of the big edicts from Marvel was capping all these other Phase 2 movies, and that demanded Thanos' presence. His original pitch for the movie had nothing to do with the Infinity Gauntlet, and during the whole Phase 2 process, whenever he was advising on all the films, he went as far to remove a lot of Thanos from Guardians of the Galaxy. Originally, his role in the film was closer to what Ronan's was. He was more of like the big bad of the film, and Whedon said, "No, we have to hold off on this." So that's why Ronan became the big bad of Guardians of the Galaxy. The biggest complaints that Whedon had about the character is that he's kind of unrelatable compared to other villains. He's like the guy behind the guy. But things were always headed in his direction. And of course, Kevin Feige's like, yeah, you have to put Thanos in the movie. So Thanos is in the end credits scene. It kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen whenever the next director comes along and has to use Thanos in like a really big way, like maybe during Thor Ragnarok. It could either be really awesome or it could be a nightmare from a story standpoint. As awesome as it is to work on Marvel films, sometimes things like this, characters like this, could be big roadblocks. Moving on to number 4, Loki and Heimdall end credits scene. Heimdall was in the movie, he made it into Thor's vision, but there was a whole other scene with Loki that was shot and just cut out during the final edit. Whedon said the movie just got way too overstuffed with plot, so he had to cut it out just because it wasn't absolutely essential to the story that he was telling. It was really only there to set up Thor Ragnarok, and you could argue that Thor's visions of the Infinity Gauntlet did that already. All that Loki scene was meant to be was Thor returning to Asgard. I did see there was a lot of questions about Thor's visions, like, you know, what he was seeing and what they were setting up. The Heimdall scene was of a post-apocalyptic Asgard. He was seeing it after Ragnarok. All his friends were dying and things were in chaos. The flashes that he got of the Infinity Gauntlet with the gems in it were just part of that, as if they were the cause of Ragnarok. That doesn't mean that that's going to be going on in Thor Ragnarok, although I think it'll have something to do with the plot of the movie. I've already done a video for that movie, so I'll include a link in the description. But the movie is kind of like Thor's version of Winter Soldier crossed with Jack Kirby's Ragnarok. So my Thor video that I did is all about Jack Kirby's Ragnarok, so that'll explain that story. Yes, it's a bummer that Tom Hiddleston had to sit Avengers Age of Ultron out because he's a great actor. He's a lot of fun as Loki, but he is going to be all over Thor 3, so don't worry. I know there's also a lot of questions about how Thanos got that gauntlet at the end, if it's supposed to be in Odin's vault. The movie is probably going to address that. Thor Ragnarok will address that. Sometimes it all makes sense after the final movie is released. Sometimes they kind of derp along the way with the logic. There really isn't a lot of context for like the time frame where that Thanos post-credit scene takes place. It could be in the future, it could be in the present day. They haven't really confirmed that. On to number 3, Mystery Woman at Thor's reflecting pool. Whenever they released the first trailer, everyone was pointing at this woman, just wondering who she might be. Is it Hala? Is it someone else? She's at the reflecting pool that Thor took Erik Selvig to, so she's probably tied to Asgardian mythology. So if you're just going with that context, then it probably is Hala, but a lot of people thought it also might be someone from Wakanda, so it could be that too. Kevin Feige just said that it really was no one. It was just an interesting image that marketing saw and pulled for the trailer. The people that make the trailers aren't typically the people that work on the films. It's usually the marketing department that makes the trailers. So a lot of times what you'll see is scenes in trailers that will never make it to the final cut of a film. On to number 2, Captain Marvel is a member of the new Avengers. If you remember that scene at the end of the movie where it pans up in Scarlet Witch in her new Avengers costume, those were actually shot as visual effects plates for Captain Marvel. They hadn't cast her yet when they shot that, so they were like, well, we'll cast her and we'll put her in later. It's amazing how much you can change a film after the film itself has been shot. The reason they cut her out is because Kevin Feige just felt like it was too soon to introduce her, and when they did introduce her, they wanted to do it in a much bigger way, and this felt like it would have been too offhanded. Like, oh yeah, here's this, huge character, big deal. So Captain Marvel probably going to show up during Captain America Civil War. Spider-Man is another good example of that. They opted to not tag the end of the film with any of that. They just weren't ready for it. They did announce that he's actually going to be showing up in Captain America Civil War. We don't know what that role is going to look like. He could be offered membership in the Avengers by the end of the film, whether or not the Avengers still exist. Right now, the two big actors they're looking at are Tom Holland and Asa Butterfield. I feel like either of those choices would be acceptable, so I'm not going to get super excited until they finally confirm an actor. And finally, the #1 cut made to Avengers Age of Ultron, the Grey Hulk. This is actually a much bigger deal than a lot of the other cuts because Joss Whedon was actually building a big arc of the film around Hulk becoming gray. He said that late in the editing stages, he came to the realization that it was more of a plot device that could be turned into its own movie. So he went to Kevin Feige and said, I think we should cut out Grey Hulk. You can just use this in another movie. So like the next likely place they would do Grey Hulk would be Avengers Infinity War. If you're not familiar with the Grey Hulk, the Hulk originally, whenever Stan Lee first created him, he was gray. He was supposed to be green, but because of a coloring error, he wound up gray. So his first issue, Incredible Hulk #1, he started out as gray. Issue #2 is when he turned green. Stan Lee turned it into like an interesting part of the mythology. So Grey Hulk is like a slightly less angry, more cognitive version of the Hulk. Think talking Hulk, one that can communicate beyond grunts. So you can see how that might have been really interesting with the, Bruce, Natasha romance that was going on in the film, their relationship. The Green Hulk that appeared in issue #2 became the Savage Hulk. He'd get angrier much faster, but would also proportionately lose parts of his intelligence. There have been various points throughout the comics that have explored Smart Hulk. Bruce Banner going code green while being able to maintain his genius level intellect. For those of you that read X-Men Axis, there's also another version of the Hulk too. They made the joke that it's the Hulk's version of the Hulk. Like if the Hulk itself hulked out. He's just basically like the most evil version of Hulk you could possibly see. If you want to read like a really awesome Grey Hulk storyline, just read Jeff Loeb's Hulk Grey. It was a 6-issue miniseries, the artwork's amazing, and the titles of each of the issues is really interesting too. It starts with like A is for Apple, and it gets to issue 6, F for Father. So you get, very cats in the cradle. But Mark Ruffalo has been really open about possible directions to take a Hulk solo film. There's just like this really interesting relationship that Bruce Banner has with the Hulk himself. Mark Ruffalo is mostly known for doing really personal, psychological indie films, so it makes sense that he would want to do a Hulk film that deals more with that kind of stuff. How does Banner feel about the Hulk, and how does the Hulk feel about Banner? So here's my big question for you guys. What thing that they cut out of the film do you really want to see on the DVD bonus features? There are a couple things they probably won't do. Like they're probably not going to put Grey Hulk on the bonus features. Most likely what they'll do is they'll include that Loki scene that they cut out and just extended versions of scenes that they cut way down. Most of the stuff they cut down are just extra bits inside scenes. Then you have like big arcs that they cut out, like Grey Hulk. I know a lot of you guys have also asked me about Quicksilver too, like will he come back? Which gems do they have? What's going on? As of right now, the only gems that they don't have are the Time Gem, which is time travel, which would be an easy way to bring Quicksilver back. And there's the Soul Gem. If you're wondering about which gem is which, just going in chronological order, the Marvel phases. The Tesseract is the Space Gem. The Mind Gem was in Loki's staff. I know everyone was confused about the colors, so the staff is blue, the gem is yellow. The reason it didn't look yellow is because it was covered in a casing that was blue. The Power Gem was the one in Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Reality Gem was the Aether in Thor the Dark World. Some of you have requested some Infinity Gem bonus videos, so I might do like some fun comic book history of Infinity Gem videos in the future, so be sure to subscribe to get those. If there's any like other specific bonus videos, feel free to make requests. We have all the time in the world. What I'm going to start doing now is because Ant-Man is only a couple months away, I'll do some Ant-Man specific videos and then some Captain America Civil War stuff. Scarlet Witch is already confirmed that she's coming back for Civil War. They'll probably bring Vision back too, but he's unconfirmed. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to see Age of Ultron. You can actually click here for my breakdown with spoilers and Easter eggs, and you can click here for the Flash Gorilla Grodd trailer. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys this weekend.